Okay, we're going to start running through some tools here for you guys. Today's tool test is going to be on the vacuums. This is one vacuum that we use. This is Diomatic or Nilsvik, the private label Diomatic. It has two motors on it. But the first thing you do before you check anything is to make sure the cord is correct. It has to have a ground on it. The wires have to be tight. There can't be any bare wires showing behind the plug, okay? This cord's been cut down so it's only about 6 feet long, but it does come with about 20 feet normally. That doesn't really matter per se. The most important thing is when you plug it into our cord on the job site. Same thing. We shouldn't have bare wires sticking out like that. That's a safety violation, so this cord needs to be corrected. The other bigger thing is that the size of the cord is important. The power that comes from the outlet to the machine really needs to be as big a cord as possible. This is a 12 gauge. Yes, this is a 12 gauge. And it's a pretty good size. You can see the difference. Here's a 14 gauge. 14 gauge is much smaller. This is like your typical homeowner cord. These are the cords we buy at Home Depot and Lowe's. And then some of our cords are even larger, which would be a 10 gauge. So this is 14, that's no good. 12 is acceptable, or 10 is acceptable. 10 is a little bit bigger. That's the fatter ones from Home Depot. So after you've checked your ground, you've checked your cord, your plugs are good, plug in your ground, make sure you have good connection, you have good connection on the other end. Now, power's good. This machine requires to be plunged or cleaned of filters about every 10 minutes. So if you're on your knees grinding edges, or if you're running the big machine with this vacuum, you need to stop the machine every 10 minutes, or we'll come up another option in a second. And as simple as this, is you have to have this lever off, and you need to plunge it about 20 times. What that does is in the bottom of the machine there's a filter, like a sock. And when you beat on that, it shakes that filter, which shakes the dust off of it. This does not have an automatic plunging system, so it's all done manually. So by doing that, you're shaking the dust off into the pan below. When you're done plunging it, you have to put this lever back over the plunger. If you don't, it doesn't allow it to suck. It loses suction. Let's go ahead and look at the hose situation. Now, these have two types of hoses you can use. A regular hose, you can fit into there, or if some of our hoses have a locking plastic end on it, it'll actually lock into this little lever. This is an older hose, so it'll just fit right in. You shouldn't run more than about 20 feet of hose. If it has to draw dust farther than 20 or 25 feet, it doesn't have enough suction. Shorter the hose, the more power. These pull pretty good, but they really aren't meant for the 780s. They're really meant for hand grinders. So don't put on too much hose. This is a dry vacuum only. And if you're going to hook it up to your tool, as simple as that, you hook it up like you would normally, put this into your shroud. Now we have a couple options for the ends. This is an 1.5 inch or 2 inch for a normal shroud. This is what you guys normally run this kind of shroud here. Fits right in. You don't need tape. It's rubber to rubber. It should work just fine. If you happen to be using a different kind of hand grinder, this particular hand grinder has a shroud on it that's a smaller adapter. That's an 1.5 inch, I believe. We have those. You don't need to put this 2 inch on and wad a bunch of tape around there. All you have to do is do this, maybe put 1 or 2 pieces of tape around that, and then now this will fit right onto your tool like that. So now you can adapt that. The other advantage of having a proper adapter without 20 rolls of duct tape on it is it'll fit right on the wands. Some of our wands are the same size as this, and it'll fit right on there. Again, a couple pieces of tape. This is a good dust wand. This hose is not meant for water. Water is meant to be in the little red hoses we use that are about 1.5 inches. This is a 2 inch dry hose for dry dust. But you can vacuum dry dust with this wand, and if you use this adapter, you don't have to fight it. I notice a lot of times you guys do this, and you put 6 rolls of duct tape around it, and then it becomes all awkward and weird. When as simple as this, keep these adapters handy, stick it on like that, now it's tight, you won't have to worry about it. Leave the adapter on the tool. That way you always know where it's at. Maybe put a piece of tape around here so it stays permanent on here. These are cheap. They're only a couple bucks to buy. We can put them on the shrouds, keep them on there permanent. We can put them on the wands, keep them on there permanent. So, the other trick to this vacuum is when you're done grinding, you've ground your edges and you're done, you're going to take lunch or break, shut off your grinder, leave the vacuum running for about another minute or two. all that dust that's in that 25 feet of hose has to get into the vacuum. If you don't, if you shut it off immediately, all the dust sits in there. Next time you go to start the vacuum, this huge amount of dust gets sucked into the filters and clogs the filters. So let it cycle, let it go for a while. You can even do this. After you disconnect it from your grinder, stand up for a minute and hold your hand against it for a minute and let your hand off. Put your hand on it for 10 seconds, let your hand off. What this does is it creates suction for the filters and it starts sucking tighter and tighter and tighter. When you release your hand, the dust falls off. So it kind of acts like a plunger just with your hand. Another double trick on that. Okay, so it's going to get loud for a second. I'm going to turn it on real quick just to show you that it has two motors. You can hear both those coming on. You should run them both. It'll have better CFM. The CFM is how much airflow it goes to the unit. Two motors work great. Shut it off every couple hours for a few minutes, let it cool down. They get very hot. The only other little thing you need to worry about is how to change it. So once you've plunged it, every 10 minutes for an hour or so, depending on how much material you're taking off the floor, you lift up this lever, pull out the tray. There's no rubber gasket on this. Take it, dump it in a bag, put it back on when you're done. I'll show you the bottom of it so you know what it looks like. See those filters? Every time you plunge this, see that motion? That's shaking those filters so the dust comes off. So when they come back to the office to be checked on, what we can do is we can vacuum that out with a cheaper vacuum like a Home Depot vacuum and kind of get you a good start. But it's really important that you kind of maintain this in the field. So let dust come off of there. That's clogging up this machine. When that gets clogged, the motors get hot, they blow up. This is the $2,000 vacuum. We have a lot of them. We need your help in taking care of them. So simple as that. Look how much dust came off with just that little shake. That means it's not being cleaned properly. There's a rubber gasket on the bottom here. It's important that you put this back in the right spot. So when it pops in, it's airtight. If there's any drafts, it won't suck right. So I think this one's ready to go. So in review, remember to check your plugs. Check for a ground. Make sure there's no bare wires. Use a proper size cord, a 12 or a 10 size cord, not a Homeowner 14 size. Make sure your hose is put in right. Always utilize an 1.5 adapter when it comes to a wand or this type of shroud. Okay? Remember those points, they'll be on your test. Thanks.